don't be afraid to go and talk and stir the pot and let people know you're unhappy with services that you may not have here that you think that you're entitled to and should have here. So, once you've been in a caregiving situation and you have found that not everything you needed was available, then that, let that give you strength to raise your voice and say, hey, we need more services here. So start becoming an advocate for others as well. Real quick story about this photo, and I thought it was really interesting. In rural Southwest Georgia, I found out about these people. Miss Hattie Mae Rhodes, who is the beautiful lady with the red, is 102 years old right now. And Edna Akins, who is the other lady, her husband found out that Miss Hattie Mae was living alone. He had some type of a route that he did in a community, and he saw that she was living alone, and I think he just stopped and talked to her one day. She was very lonely. She had no family. She wasn't eating, and she was scared. She lived in a very unsafe neighborhood, and there was a lot of drug activity, and she didn't know what to do. And so he came home and told his wife about Miss Hattie Mae, and so they went about once a week to check on her and to do things for her and to try to get her to eat more and so on. But it was really a dangerous atmosphere for Miss Hattie Mae. And their friendship grew to the extent that, that Edna and her husband Anthony invited Hattie Mae to become a member of their family. And I don't mean just come and camp out at their house. They took her in as an actual member of their family. She moved in with them, and they have 2 little girls, and they call her Grandma. And she has lived with them now for about 10 years. And I think this is a compelling story for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is that it was in rural Southwest Georgia that this happened. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of racism and bigotry in the South, as you probably know. So this is something that you would not expect to see or to find. But, things like this do happen. So, become aware of people who are in your own community that might be suffering in silence and might need somebody to come in and help them out. Next slide. The next tip is deal with one issue or concern at a time. It's real easy to get overwhelmed as a caregiver. We have so many different things that might be going on, maybe financial problems, legal problems, medication problems, and so on. But again, we have to look at things in perspective, deal with the most important thing. The thing that's causing the most difficulty in your situation is the thing you should tend to first. This is a picture from rural Alabama, and what I found compelling about this is that the door that you see just sort of up against the house, that's actually their wheelchair ramp, because they don't have one. And in a lot of communities, the most basic of things people don't have. So it makes it really hard on a daily basis. So if you're a caregiver and you have a lot of problems and issues, try to deal, and I know it's easy, the hardest one is the one you might not want to deal with, so you might put it over to the side, but deal with that most difficult thing first, and then everything else will seem easier. Next slide. Build a care network. Everyone is capable of doing this. I've heard so many stories in the last few days. My sister and I came in on Wednesday, and we've talked to a lot of people. But there are other people in the same situation as you and your family out there. You might not have met them yet, you might not know them yet, but they're there. In your community, you have to ask questions and talk to people. Be open to sharing what's going on with your family and some difficulties that you may be having, because other people might be having those same exact difficulties, and there's strength in numbers. You can gain strength from hearing that you're not the only person that's going through something. I took this picture in San Juan, Puerto Rico a few years ago, and this community grant site, these high school kids were going into, it was a nursing home. I had not seen a nursing home that was built like this. It was like a circle, and all the doors, everyone had their own apartment. The doors faced out into a hallway. So that's someone's door right there. And so it was like they all had their own little apartment. But they had things like some of the doors were hanging off the hinge, or the screen was busted out, things like that. And so these kids were going in and doing repair work for the people that live there, doing house cleaning, bringing meals in. But the most important thing they did is they just came in and they sat and talked to them. Because, you know, in a lot of places, people don't have family, they don't have somebody checking on them all the time, they don't have somebody just to, you know, befriend them. And that's what these kids did, and they just did a wonderful job. And how the elderly people's eyes lit up on the days that these kids came in. And it wasn't a chore. They weren't doing it because they had to, the kids. And they weren't doing it for any type of monetary compensation at all. I talked to them away from the site, and they all said that it made them feel good. Remember what I said earlier about it makes people feel good to be able to help. So by allowing people in, you can build a care network. You can get people that are able to do things to assist you. Next slide. Your culture is important. I don't have to tell you that. You've been hearing it all day today. I really appreciated the traditional healer and hearing what he had to say this morning, because, you know, everyone does have their own culture, and it's important to you. It might not be important to someone else, but it's important to you. I took this in Aurora Hundo, in Taos, New Mexico, on the reservation there. And why I think that we need to remember that culture is important is, if you come across someone who is coming into your home, giving you services, whether it's at a hospital or a doctor's office or wherever you may go for any type of services, if a person does not respect your culture, you can ask for somebody else. And Ophelia she talked yesterday and today as well, and gave some good examples of that, but don't think that you have to settle. If somebody doesn't respect your ways and the way that you want to be treated because that's your belief, then find somebody else. You have that right. Next slide. Be supportive of other caregivers. And I actually thought I had put another picture up here, but I'll go with this one. This kind of ties into a little bit of what I was just saying, but other caregivers, by and large, people who are in professional caregiving roles, they're trying to do the best they can to help you and to help your family. So you have to be honest with them. If they don't know everything that's going on, they can't offer you the best services. I think I heard that in several talks today. You know, the fear maybe of giving away too much information, and you know, the privacy issues and all of that. That might be part of your culture, but if you hold things back and you aren't honest with the people who are trying to provide you care, then they might miss something and they might not be able to give you the best care that's possible. So try not to, you know, try not to do that. Try to be open and honest. Another thing I want to say about be supportive of other caregivers is in your own personal family. I know a lot of families have family issues. I also call it dysfunctional family. Maybe everybody has a dysfunctional family to some extent. But you know what I'm talking about. There could be some grievances from long ago that no one's forgiven and that type of thing. When a person gets sick, if there's a diagnosis of cancer or anything else that a person could be diagnosed with, everybody's not going to all of a sudden pull together and buck up and be great. You know, those issues are still going to be there. Be aware of that. Those things are not magically going to disappear overnight. What's going to change is you might have to work a little bit harder to mend those bridges, because people in the family are going to have to pull together for the benefit of their loved one who's sick. So that was the other thing I wanted to say about that. I also want to draw attention to this photo. In 2004, we had an expert panel on rural caregiving, and my boss gave me the task of finding somebody to talk about health disparities. And so I set about finding who I thought would be the best person, and I found Dr. Regina Benjamin, who was the medical director at a small little health clinic in Bauer Granberry, Alabama, and very poverty-ridden place, but she was doing wonderful things in her local community, and she was advocating that there not be disparities. Well, earlier this week, I was thrilled to hear that President Obama named Dr. Regina Benjamin the new Surgeon General of the United States. This is our new Surgeon General. I think that